Okay, what we're doing this week is talking about the philosophical arguments for God. They will not necessarily prove to you there is a God, but maybe they will at least get you to think, do I have to have more faith to believe there is a God, or do I have to have more faith to believe that all of this just happened? So what I want to talk about today is the idea of what is called the teleological argument for God. It is the argument for design. And so let me give you an example here. All of you are familiar with cell phone. And so this is just an example here of a cell phone. Now if I ask you what all is involved in this, all of you know that this contains a phone. Somebody designed a phone, but not only does it have a phone, it basically has the ability to text messages. And you can do other things on it. But it has more than that. It has a camera in it. And so most cell phones have a camera, but they have more than that. They have a calculator. You can pull up a calculator. And so depending on what apps you have, this is an incredibly versatile machine here. So this has been designed by somebody. And even though you will never know who designed this, you all know that somebody did design this. And if I tried with the best of my ability to make you think that this just happened, that the wind blew one day and I walked out and found this in the yard and everything worked, I could never convince you of that. You would never in all of your life believe that. And yet, we live in a universe that is much more complicated than this. We live in a universe that is more intricate, it is more complicated than anything you will see here. And there are people that want to tell you that given enough time, given enough chances, this universe just happened. So if you will not believe this just happened, why would you believe that this incredible universe just came into existence? If you look at this universe that we live in, people, it has certainly been designed. It has been designed by some mind. If you look at biology, all of you study biology, it is the study of life. And if you look at the life, how complex life is, it is almost incredible. When you look from the way that the cells are set up, if you look at the way that atoms are held together, if you look at carbon that has 4 electrons in the outer shell, which gives it the ability to bond ionically and covalently, it will bond with almost anything. You see life and its incredible complexity. And to think that all of this just happened takes a lot of faith, if you ask me. You go from biology to physics, and you look at the world of physics. We study physics, and if you take physical science, you are studying things like gravity. And I'm not just talking about gravity in this world here, although it is very important, but universal gravity. Galileo studied on that. Isaac Newton studied on that. Einstein studied on that. And so the way gravity is set up, if it was a little bit different, if gravity was a little bit stronger or a little bit weaker, you would never have life as we know it. You can go from gravity to magnetism. All of you are familiar with magnetism. Do you realize there's a magnetic field that surrounds the earth called the Van Allen belt? It wasn't discovered until the 1950s. And the Van Allen belt acts as a solar, it catches the solar wind that protects the earth from all sorts of particles and radiation. And so you have gravity. It has to be exactly like it is. The magnetic field has to be exactly like it is, or the world would have no life on it. And so whether you go from biology, the study of life, to physics, movement, and how all of these works, everything is incredibly balanced. It is incredibly complex. Look at astrology, the study of the universe as a whole. Look at the earth itself. The earth itself, we are traveling right now at about 1,000 miles an hour around this earth. If we were going a little bit faster, we would all be plastered into the earth. If we were going a little bit slower, we would all basically just float out into the atmosphere. It is going exactly the right speed. Look at the revolution, the orbit, if you will, around the sun. We are approximately 93,000 miles from the sun. Do you realize that if we were 91,000 miles, we would all burn up? If we were 95,000 miles, 95 million, excuse me, not thousand, but 95 million miles, we would be too cold. The orbit around the sun is perfect. Perfect for life on earth. And so whether you're looking at the rotation, whether you are looking at the revolution, it has to be exactly like it is. You go to the sun, which is a medium-sized star. If it was as much as 2% bigger, it would burn up all life on earth. If it was as much as 2% smaller, everything here would be frozen. And so the sun is exactly the right shape and size and temperature to sustain life here. And I could talk about the moon and how the moon is just the right shape and just the right size and just the right distance to help with the climate. I could talk about the tilt of the earth. It is tilted at 23.5 degrees, that if the earth was straight up, or if it was more toward 25 or 30 degrees, life on earth as we know it would not be possible. And so the moon is incredibly complex. The sun is incredibly complex. The earth itself is incredibly complex. But I can go further than that. Most of you are familiar, you know that the largest planet that we have is Jupiter. Jupiter has the largest gravitational field in our solar system. The gravitational field of Jupiter pulls literally hundreds, if not thousands, of comets and meteors that would hit the earth. But like a giant glove, Jupiter pulls them to its gravitation, and thereby they miss the earth. Most of you have heard of the asteroid field. The asteroid field, again, acts like a sponge or a wall, depending on what metaphor you want to use. That it knocks and hits many meteors and comets that come through that otherwise would hit the earth. And so here's what you want to understand. When it comes to biology, we live in an incredibly complex machine here. When it comes to physics, it is incredibly complex. Everything is ordered, everything is structured, everything is set just so that if it were any different at all, and I'm not talking about a few of them, if one of the things, and I just talked about a few, you could talk about literally hundreds of things that if they were a little bit different, there would be no life on earth. And so here is what you need to understand. Does that prove there is a God? No, it does not prove it. But a sane, rational, lucid person, a person who has a mind that's trying to really think, you know even though you will never meet him and never know who it was, and in this case it's many people, you know there is a designer behind this right here. And so I would ask you to give it some thought and understand that there is also a designer behind the creator of this universe. Where there is a design, there is a designer, and we call him God.